My name is Ricky Reslavian, and I will stop at nothing to teach the world about itself. Hold on to your seats, because the Emperor is here. Hey guys, I'm just here hanging out on this beautiful sunshiny day, just enjoying life, relaxing, and I'm here to bring you some updated information about some great ancient civilizations. Hey, before we get too far into today's episode, I just want to introduce the Place of Honor. This is a place where we put every week something really important about the episode, and I'd like to honor this week the shovel. The ordinary, the original digging implement, the best friend of every archaeologist who's ready to dig in and discover something new. So let's give it up to the shovel today. So now that we've honored the shovel, let's jump in and talk about the Minoans and the man known as Arthur Evans, who taught us so much about them. We know that this man, Arthur Evans, was a British archaeologist, and he set about to excavate Crete because he believed that he would find perhaps the famed palace of King Minos, where the Minotaur lived. So he got digging with his shovel, and what he uncovered was a truly amazing site that was the remains of the famous Minoan Palace. So let's talk about who these people, the Minoans, were. First of all, the Minoans peaked in their power around 2000 BC. Historians would say that the Minoans could be considered the first civilization to arise in Greece, and really could be the first civilization to arise in Europe. Minoans became powerful because they were expert shipbuilders, and they used the cedar trees on the island of Crete to build ships that enabled them to become trading experts. These experts in trade became so powerful that they had a kingdom based on trade. What Arthur Evans found was the amazing palace at Gnosis, which is by and far the most famous Minoan building. This is, of course, where the royal family lived, and as he excavated the site, he discovered many, many rooms and hallways and workshops and storerooms, and so many rooms and hallways, in fact, that it almost appeared to be a labyrinth. All right, and this palace even had indoor plumbing, which is pretty amazing for the time. So this is what the palace looks like today if you would go visit it. And what Arthur Evans discovered throughout the palace was lots and lots of paintings that tell us a little bit about the Minoans. From this painting we can see that the sea obviously influenced them. Particularly, we see that they have interaction with sea creatures like dolphins very, very frequently. If we check out this painting again, like many of the early Greeks, the Minoans were expert fishermen, and we can see that with this man here and his catch of fish in each hand. From this painting we have two boys which are fighting, and perhaps one of the most famous images from all of Minoan art is this famous painting of bull leaping. And so what we see here is an acrobat doing acrobatic stunts off the back of this bull. And this was a Minoan ritual that was deeply connected to their religion. So let's talk about what the Minoans believed. Like many Greeks in the area, and really many ancient societies, the Minoans had many gods, or they were polytheistic, and they were centered on natural elements. The Minoans, like other Greeks, believed that the gods got involved in the people's lives, and they could please the gods by making sacrifices to them, and perhaps the gods would help them in their life. For the Minoans, the most important goddess was the Mother Earth goddess, who was seen as a symbol of fertility, as a creator, and someone that would help bring life to the island. As you can see on this pottery here, the Minoan Mother Earth goddess is sometimes represented by a double axe, which is sometimes seen as a symbol of fertility and life, and as well is connected with the myth of the Minotaur, sometimes carries a double axe. So this bull leaping that we saw painted earlier was a religious ritual which would often end in the sacrifice of the bull to the Minoan gods. And what Arthur Evans discovered as he excavated Gnosis was lots of bull art lots of architectural elements, and these things he believed could have perhaps inspired others in the region to create the myth of the Minotaur. So, what do I want you to remember? I want you to remember that the Minoans were shipbuilders, traders, fishermen. They were a trading powerhouse. They controlled the most powerful trading empire in the ancient world in the Mediterranean and the Aegean region. But they were more than that. They were skilled painters and jewelry makers as well. And we have to remember that the kings lived in an amazing palace at Gnosis. So, what happened to this civilization that dominated the Aegean world in the ancient past? Well, historians aren't exactly quite sure. What we do know is that their civilization suddenly disappeared. They have a lot of theories. Perhaps it was destroyed by a volcanic eruption or some other kind of natural disaster which weakened the Minoans. What we do know is that no matter how they were weakened, they were later conquered by a new and upcoming group from the Greek mainland known as the Mycenaeans. Okay? After the Minoan civilization declined, the new power in the region was the Mycenaeans. Okay? The Mycenaeans came to power around the year 1900 BC. So who was this new powerful group? Well, they didn't come out of nowhere. It's not like we just flipped on a light switch and we flipped off the light switch on Crete. They had moved from Central Asia and from the Greek mainland, and they were started to rise and become a powerful civilization also based on trade. Agamemnon is hands down the most famous Mycenaean king, and we learned a little bit about him from the archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann, who discovered the most famous Mycenaean city, the walled city of Mycenae, which is, of course, where they get their name. Now, this Agamemnon is also a main character in the story of the Iliad as told by Homer, in which the Greek hero Odysseus creates a wooden horse to trick the Trojans to let them inside their city, in which the Mycenaeans, or the Greeks, ultimately were victorious over the Trojans. Now, the Mycenaean kingdoms were in fact real places, and Mycenae is the best example of one of these Mycenaean cities. Most of these cities were centered on a hill, like many ancient cities of the past, and this allowed them to be protected, perhaps by walls, but also by the high ground. Most Mycenaean cities had a megaron at the center of their palace, not a megatron, folks, a megaron. So people that lived around these cities also would have farmed around the outside of these cities. The Mycenaeans were a civilization with a very advanced economy. They were more than just traders and warriors. They were artisans who made crafts like pottery and like weapons. And people that would have lived in these cities would have been taxed through the local king. They would have paid these taxes through livestock or food or the things that they grew throughout that season. So when we're thinking about the early Greeks, we have to remember that these two civilizations would have overlapped. The Mycenaeans would have traded with, learned from, and then eventually conquered the Minoans. All right? And so the same natural disasters, the same things that ultimately weaken the Minoans are going to start to impact the Mycenaeans, which is going to lead to a dark age. Historians believe that natural disasters, like perhaps earthquakes, again weaken them, and then civil wars among their cities ultimately led to the decline of the Mycenaeans. All right? And so during this dark age, we consider a dark age to be any kind of period of decline. We're going to have some big effects on the Greek mainland and the Aegean world. Trade slows. People are afraid to leave their towns because of the wars. And we also see, during a time of crisis, education start to decline as well. And over a series of generations, they actually forgot the written language. But one positive thing did happen towards the end of the Dark Age, and that was that people that start to begin identifying as Greeks start to look for new places to live, and they spread out and form colonies around the Aegean region. Now, if that couldn't get any more crazy, we have to throw in a group of people called the Dorians. So who were the Dorians? The Dorians were Greek people from the north, towards the northern part of the Greek peninsula. And so they're actually going to move south. And the Dorians were pretty advanced. You see, they had moved past working with bronze, and they had learned to work with iron. And so they bring this new ironworking technology into the Greek peninsula, which is, of course, a lot stronger than bronze. And so these new iron weapons and new farm tools are actually going to revolutionize the area, which is going to lead to changes and growth that ultimately will lead the Greeks out of the Dark Age. So because of this new amazing technological advancements, we're going to start to see the Dark Age slowly come to an end. We're going to see farming increase. We're going to see trade increase. We're going to see the population begin to rise. And finally, we're going to see an increase and a return of writing. So it was at the end of the Dark Age here that back in the mainland Greek peninsula, civilization is going to start again in small communities. And people around this time are going to begin to call themselves and begin to identify as Greeks. They're still going to be connected mainly to their city, but they start to have an identity based on the language that they speak. So, next time we tune in, we're going to learn about two specific city-states in Greece that were very different, but also very powerful. We're going to be comparing the city-states of Athens and Sparta.